Jesus says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." A recent Snapchat poll of people in this country has shown that the typical Briton has been left with fewer than 3 close friends. The Facebook generation will talk of having hundreds of friends. It has even become a verb. To friend someone is to add someone to our list of online associates. Other research found that 3 out of 4 of us are prepared to admit to feeling lonely. More than half of those polled said that their busy lifestyle was the main reason for failing to keep in touch with old friends. And 4 out of 10 said that they just drifted apart. And a lonely 18% of respondents, nearly a fifth, offload their worries to workmates because they have no one else to turn to. More recent research has found that what friendships we had have suffered badly during the last year. 61% say they now feel less close to their friends, of whom 23% say they feel much less close. And yet other research has shown that having friends helps people fight illness and depression, speeds their recovery, slows aging, and prolongs life. As an ancient philosopher once said, a faithful friend is the medicine of life. But I do wonder, what does it mean to be a friend? The dictionary says that a friend is a person with whom one has a bond of mutual affection. The word friend comes from an old word for love. So maybe to be a friend is simply to love someone. How important it is then to hear Jesus use the language of friendship in order to describe his relationship with you. "You are my friends," says Jesus. So what does that mean? What does it mean in practice to be a friend of Jesus? Well, in John's Gospel, chapter 15, Jesus draws attention to 3 things that are part of what it means to be a friend. Firstly, then, to be a friend of Jesus means to be loved. You are loved. Mother Teresa once said to her followers, "Jesus wants me to tell you again how much is the love he has for each one of you, beyond all that you can imagine. Not only that he loves you, even more he longs for you. He misses you when you don't come close. He thirsts for you. He loves you always, even when you don't feel worthy." Children, it seems, are much more confident of love than grown-ups. They know it's just there, it's a given, and they don't have to earn it. A writer called Brennan Manning says this about us becoming like children. We are children perhaps at the very moment when we know that it is as children that God loves us. Not because we have deserved his love, and not in spite of our undeserving. Not because we try, and not because we recognise the futility of our trying, but simply because he has chosen to love us. We are children because he is our Father. And all our efforts, fruitful and fruitless, to do good, to speak truth, to understand, are the efforts of children who, for all their precocity, are children still, in that before we loved him, he loved us as children through Jesus Christ our Lord. You are loved, and Jesus calls you his friend. To be a friend of Jesus also means to know that God is with us and to know that God is guiding us. "I no longer call you servants," said Jesus, "because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything I learnt from the Father I have made known to you." Jesus was totally open with his disciples. No plans of his were labelled top secret. He kept nothing from them. Jesus had a plan. He knew what he was doing, and he shared that knowledge with his followers. And this is what Jesus does today. He reveals something of his will to us. He guides us. He directs us in the way. And Jesus' plan is that we, as his disciples, bear fruit. But sometimes it's hard to bear fruit. Sometimes it's hard to see any results. You could be faithful to God. You could do all that you can, but still, evidence that what we're doing is achieving anything can be hard to find. I often think of the missionary workers of past centuries. In West Africa, it took 14 years of missionary work before there were any conversions. In East Africa 10, in New Zealand 9, in Tahiti 16. William Carey worked for 7 years before the Hindu Krishna Pal became his first convert. In Burma, Judson had to work 7 years before he saw any results from his ministry. On one occasion, he wrote home to say, "Beg the churches to have patience. If a ship were here to carry me to any part of the world, I would not leave my field. Tell the brethren, success is as certain as the promise of a faithful God can make it." You know, sometimes all we have to hold on to is our calling, but that never falters. And even in our bleakest moments, we can be confident that God is with us. And so we go on, seeking to do God's will, praying, "Thy will be done." And God will answer that prayer. His will be done in and through you. But being a friend isn't about offering a guarantee that everything's going to be all right. It's more about saying that when stuff happens, we'll face it together, that we'll find a way through together. That's what God says to his people who are in exile. In Isaiah chapter 43, God says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. I will be with you." That is what a friend says, not "stick by me and you'll never have to go through rivers or walk through fire." That's not what Isaiah said. No, God says, when you go through these tough times, I will be with you, and you will not be overwhelmed, and you will not be consumed, because I, your friend, will be with you. Jesus promises to be with us, strengthening us, encouraging us, but also guiding us and showing the way. You are loved, and God is with you. God is guiding you. And finally, to be a friend of Jesus means to love as Jesus loved. We are to be friends to each other. No one must be excluded. Everyone must be loved and supported and cared for and understood. The quality of our friendships that we are commanded to put in place means that we should resolve conflicts peacefully, that we should listen to one another more, that we should give quality time to building up our relationships with one another. There's a lovely story that illustrates this wonderfully. It's a story of an old monastery that had fallen upon hard times. Centuries earlier, it had been a thriving monastery where many dedicated monks lived and worked and had great influence on the realm. But now, only 5 monks lived there, and they were all over 70 years old. This was clearly a dying order. A few miles from the monastery lived an old hermit, who many thought was a prophet. One day, as the monks agonized over the impending demise of their order, they decided to visit the hermit to see if he might have some advice for them. Perhaps he might be able to see the future and show them what they could do to save the monastery. The hermit welcomed the 5 monks into his hut. But when they explained the purpose of their visit, the hermit could only commiserate with them. "Yes, I understand how it is," said the hermit. "The spirit has gone out from the people. Hardly anyone cares much for the old things anymore." "Is there anything you can tell us," the abbot inquired of the hermit, "that would help us to save the monastery?" "No, I'm sorry," said the hermit. "I don't know how your monastery can be saved. The only thing that I can tell you is that one of you is an apostle of God." The monks were both disappointed and confused by the hermit's cryptic statement. They returned to the monastery wondering what the hermit could have meant by that statement, "One of you is an apostle of God." For months after their visit, the monks pondered the significance of the hermit's words. "One of us is an apostle of God," they mused. Did he actually mean one of us monks here at the monastery? That's impossible. We're all too old. We're too insignificant. On the other hand, what if it's true? And if it's true, then which one of us is it? Do you suppose he meant the abbot? Yes. If he meant anyone, he probably meant the abbot. He's been our leader for more than a generation. On the other hand, he might have meant Brother Thomas. Certainly Brother Thomas is a holy man, full of wisdom and light. He couldn't have meant Brother Elred. Elred gets crotchety at times and is difficult to reason with. On the other hand, he's almost always right. Maybe the hermit did mean Brother Elred. But surely he could not have meant Brother Philip. Philip is so passive, so shy, a real nobody. Still, he's always there when you need him. He's loyal and trustworthy. Yes, he could have meant Philip. Of course, the hermit didn't mean me. He couldn't possibly have meant me. I'm just an ordinary person. Yet, suppose he did. Suppose I am an apostle of God. Oh, God, not me. I couldn't be that much for you, or could I? As they contemplated in this manner, the old monks began to treat each other with extraordinary respect, on the off chance that one of them might actually be an apostle of God, and on the off chance that each monk himself might be the apostle spoken of by the hermit, each monk began to treat himself with extraordinary respect. Because the monastery was situated in a beautiful forest, many people came there to picnic on its tiny lawn, or to walk on its paths, and every now and then to go into the tiny chapel to meditate. As they did so, without even being conscious of it, they sensed the aura of extraordinary respect that now began to surround the 5 old monks and seemed to radiate out of them, permeating the atmosphere of the place. There was something strangely attractive, even compelling about it. Hardly knowing why, people began to come back to the monastery more frequently to picnic, to play, to pray. They began to bring their friends to show them this special place, and their friends brought their friends. As more and more visitors came, some of the younger men started to talk with the old monks. After a while, one asked if he could join them, then another and another. Within a few years, the monastery had once again become a thriving order, and thanks to the hermit's gift, a vibrant centre of light and spirituality throughout the realm. You are loved. And you will be guided. God will go before you to guide you, and he'll go behind you to protect you. He'll be beneath you to support you, and he'll be beside you as your friend. And the whole point of the church is that it is a place of genuine friendship, a place where you are known, respected, valued and loved. And as the research has shown, that is what people need. They need your fellowship, your friendship, your love. And then, through that, they might learn what it is to be a friend of Jesus. As we gradually emerge from all that we've faced during COVID, it's essential that churches make their love for one another not just their domestic policy, but their foreign policy too. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Amen.